Hey everybody! Today's lesson is on standard deviation. And for today's lesson, you absolutely are going to want to have your calculator. Specifically, we're going to do this in Desmos. So if you do not have that on your iPad, you need to get it loaded up now. So pause the video and do that now if you don't already have it. Okay, so this can look pretty confusing at first, right? First, what is standard deviation though? Standard deviation is just a measure of how the values in a data set can vary or deviate from the mean. So in order for me to find standard deviation, I need to know the mean of my data set, which we've talked about in previous lessons. Now, this gives you a formula for calculating standard deviation. It's a fancy formula. So basically, what you do, step one, we're going to go over the steps because they've done this in a data set. First, you calculate the mean of your data. Now, right here where you see X, this is all the data points. 12.6, 15.1, 11.2, 17.9, and 18.2. So there's all my data. So then, you're going to calculate the mean. That's that X with the bar over it. That's the symbol for mean. So they found the mean. Remember, to find the mean, you add all these numbers up, then divide by however many numbers there are. Okay? So we find the mean, and in this case, the mean was 15, okay? Then, the next thing, find the difference between the data value and the mean. So we're going to take our data value minus the mean. So 12.6 minus 15 is negative 2.4. So we're subtracting all of these to get all of these, okay? You with me so far? The next step is we square each difference. So these numbers right here, we're going to square all of them. And we get these numbers right here, okay? All right. Then you're going to find the average of those numbers. So meaning you're going to take all these numbers, add them up, and divide by the number of values there are, right? So we add them all up, and in this case, we would divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we do that, you get this value, okay? Then the final step is to take the square root of that. So we take the square root of this number, and it's about 2.79. That's it. We're done. Okay? Okay. So we're going to do this by hand, sort of, and then I'll show you how to use Desmos to do the whole thing for you. Okay? So here's our second data set. There's all the values, all the data values listed out for us. Now we need to know the mean of this. Okay, this is the part where you need to have Desmos pulled up. Okay, so in Desmos, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that plus sign, and I'm going to hit table, just like I've done before, and I'm going to enter all those data values into X sub 1. So 11.7, 18.3, 14.8, and 14.3. I'm not putting anything into Y sub 1, okay? Just in the X's. All right, now I'm going to come over here. I just tapped to the next row underneath, and now I'm going to tap on functions. See that? And I want you to, after you tap on functions, I want you to tap on stats, and we're looking for mean. Do you see it in the upper right? Tap mean. Now you need to tell Desmos where the data is. Well, all that data is in X sub 1. So I'm going to type X1 right there. Boom. There's my mean, 14.5. Okay, so I've got my mean of 14.5. And now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to write 14.5. Oops. Right here, next to every one of those data values. Okay? Now I'm going to do some subtraction. So I'm going to do each one. So I'm going to do 13.4 minus 14.5. And I get negative 1.1. Then I'm going to do 11.7 minus 14.5, and I get negative 2.8. Then I'm going to do 18.3 minus 4.5, and I get, 14.5. Hold on, I typed in the wrong thing. There we go. And I get 3.8. Then 14.8 minus 14.5, 0.3. And 14.3 minus 14.5 is negative 0.2. Now I've got to square each of those numbers. So now I'm going to do 1.1 squared, which is 1.21, or I'm sorry, negative 1.1 squared, and that's going to end up being a positive value. Negative 2.8 squared, 3.8 squared, and then 0.3 squared, and 0.2 squared. Okay, now the next thing that I got to do is I've got to add all those values up and then divide by n the number of values. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to add them all up and then divide by 5. So I'm going to do 1.21 plus 7.84 plus 14.44 plus 0.09 plus 0.04. And that gives me 23.62, which I'm dividing by 5. So I now have 4.724. And the last step is to take the square root of that. And I'm going to have to round it. So let's round it to the nearest hundredth. About 2.17, okay? So now we have the standard deviation for two different data sets. Data set 1 has a standard deviation of 2.79, and the data set 2 that we just did has a standard deviation of 2.17. So which one of these data sets has a greater standard deviation? So that would be the first one. So we're going to write data set 1. And it says the data set with the larger standard deviation has a larger or more spread out range of values. They're more spread out instead of being close together, right? Than the other one. And so that would be data set 1, right? If many of the data values are close to the mean, then the data would have a small standard deviation. And this would tell you the data is not so spread out. All right, so that's how you would do standard deviation by hand. Okay, go to the next page, and we have all of these problems are asking you to find the standard deviation of a particular data set. Okay, or of two data sets, and then determine which one is going to have the greater standard deviation. So let's look at number 1, and you do want to have Desmos open for this. Okay, so first I'm going to do data set 1, and we're going to do this on the calculator. So on your paper, I just want you to write on calculator for both of these. Okay, well, before you can do anything, I'm looking at data set 1 right now. So first I'm going to come over my calculator, I'm going to add my table, and I'm going to enter data set 1 into the X sub 1 column. So 4, 8, 5, 12, 3, 9, 3, and then 9, 5, and then 2. All right, so I've entered that in. Now I just want to get the standard deviation. Okay, so I'm going to tap on the next row below. I'm going to hit Functions. Make sure you're on the Stats menu if you're not already. And then do you see the button that says STDEV? That means Standard Deviation. So I'm going to tap Standard Deviation, and then it's asking where's the data. Now, all that data is in X sub 1. So the standard deviation for data set 1 we'll round to the nearest hundredth. I'm going to write that down here. It's going to be 3.38. Okay, now let's do it for data set 2. So data set 2, now I'm not, if you look right back at Desmos, I'm not going to change line number 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to X out just this table, not all the way, just until I get to the top. Okay, and then that line number 2 that I've got there, or row 2, that's going to automatically calculate my standard deviation for me again. Okay, so let's enter the data values for data set 2. So 5, 9, 11, 4, 6, 11, 2, and 7. Okay, and boom, there's my standard deviation. So that's about 3.27. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to write 3.27. And now, which data set has a greater standard deviation? Just barely, but it's data set 1. Okay. Now, guys, it's going to be your turn. So I want you to do problem number 2 and problem number 3 on the next page, right? Yeah, problems 2 and 3. That's all you need to do. And you can write in the boxes, right? You can go ahead and write on calculator there. So I want you to use Desmos, right, to do this. You do need to know how to do it by hand. But for most of the problems that you have like this, you'll be able to use the calculator to help you. All right, so pause the video, do problems 2 and 3 now. Hi guys, welcome back. Hopefully you did well on problems 2 and 3. Remember, you're supposed to be using Desmos to help you calculate the standard deviation. So go ahead and pause the video and check over number 2. Okay, and now check over number 3. Great. If you have questions about any of the problems that we've done today or how to use Desmos, please talk to me about it. I'm happy to help. Once you're done with this, submit it and work on your independent practice.